this is alarming. It doesn't look like there's an end in sight, and it doesn't look like there's a solution in sight. Well, so we talk about Title 42, and I know we're going to talk about other subjects too, but we talk about Title 42. But Title 42, as we've talked about before, was an emergency measure. This is not the law that was in place. The law that was, our immigration process in place was ridiculous before this, before Title 42. Title 42 was actually somewhat of a blessing that kind of stopped this influx. People would come in, you'd claim asylum, you'd get a date, you'd trust that they would show up, and then, of course, nobody shows up. I mean, you weren't returning them back to Mexico. Trump tried to change that. So the system itself wasn't very functional or effective, in my humble opinion, because I deal with this. I mean, illegal immigration, illegal reentry. I mean, there's two different charges. And so now we've gone back to this dysfunctional system before, but now it's even worse because we had a way that we were doing things temporarily, that we're going back to a previous dysfunctional system, but with not the same mindset. It's a different mindset. So it's literally this kind of floodgate opening up. I mean, those are terms that are used, but it's true. This floodgate has been opened up, and people are just walking in. I don't know if you heard about that memo during Florida's lawsuit against Biden administration, where they were just saying, look, just let them in. They found some internal memo from the Border Patrol that AG from Florida was commenting on. So it's really bad. I mean, I feel for the border towns, but don't feel for them too long, because don't think it's not coming to a city near you. And we're not far from the border. Not to mention, these are being bussed all over the place. Of course, New York is bitching about it now, because now they don't want to be a sanctuary city, I guess, because it sounded good, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is good. So it's a mess. We need to be prayerful, and we need to be diligent, and we need to support candidates and elected officials. They're going to solve the problem and not pander to whatever ideology is out there.
Well, no matter what, I mean, we're going to deep dive into this topic, absolutely. And I don't know what other topics that we want to cover this week. President Trump was on CNN for a forum, and it seemed as if beforehand that if it was on CNN that it was going to be controlled, but it seemed not controlled by CNN, because it seemed to be the old Trump that everybody knew when it came to the topics that he covered, and apparently a win, because the other side, the Dems, were completely up in arms.
The people that hate Trump, that thought it was ridiculous, they hated him. I mean, and even Republicans that don't like Trump. I mean, so whoever didn't like Trump, I don't know if it turned anybody over. Maybe George has seen polls or not. I have no idea. I'll leave that to the Georgester here, the pollster. But I don't know. I haven't looked at that. I mean, the people that don't like him don't like him. The people that love him love him. I didn't watch it, but I saw clips of it. Of course, you know me with clips. I mean, I saw clips of it. I've heard some commentary on it, that it was the old Trump, that he's back. I mean, it looked like that commentator didn't do crap to control him. It looked like a debate. I mean, I don't know what people think town halls are supposed to be. The town hall is supposed to be an opportunity for a moderator to ask tough questions, not debate the person, ask the tough questions, but let the audience hear from the candidate or the elected official and have a dialogue back and forth, because there's usually a Q&A at the end. I've done a bunch of town halls. There was a time when I was in office, I think I did like 16 town halls. And people were like, what, are you crazy? I was like, well, I mean, people want to hear. They have questions. I'm going to invite them. If they want to ask a tough question, there was a Q&A. I did a talk, but it was mainly Q&A, because if people had questions, and I went all over the county. So that's what I believe in town. And I believe elected officials should do that. I don't think any elected official, and I'm going to say it this way, but maybe it's not, has the political right to deny a debate. I just don't. I mean, you're interviewing for a job. Now, this wasn't a debate, but I'm just saying, I believe elected officials should be public. You're a public official. You're not a private official. And so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seemed like it was the old Trump. I mean, I'm way past personality. I'm way past my sensitivities of what I prefer and don't prefer. I mean, this country's in a crap hole, and we need someone, and whoever it is, that has a rational thinking, logical thinking, a courage, fortitude, and go back to our founding principles.
Hey, George.
Welcome.
Sitting here learning from the former DA. I have to say, you know, where do you start? You could probably fill 3 hours just on these two topics, right? Yeah. Between what you just mentioned, Karen. There's a lot to say about illegal immigration. You said there's no legal. Nico, I just want to ask you. You said there was no law enforcement. I think there's an effort by Texas National Guard There's been reports about the pushback of several thousand migrants behind walls of razor wire.
Yeah, saw that.
By Texas National Guard, and Abbott's been out there, affirming them in that. And so I think there is some stemming, but I think to Nico's point overall, never has it been more true that every state is a border state than now. And I think that's where we are. It's really crazy, but I think Texas has been, to the extent that Texas can be prepared within the confines of federal immigration law, I think we're doing the best that we can. I really do. I've been critical of Abbott, but in the final analysis, I think between Abbott and Paxton, I think we've literally done everything we possibly can, and we're really have gone to the limits here, really trying to play by the rules with an immigration that's blown off federal law, interestingly enough. And I guess that's a question I have. At some point, Nico, when the federal government completely blows off its responsibilities with regard to federal law, and the results are imminent harm to a state, can a state at that point ignore federal law and take it upon themselves to enforce a state version of it? Because that seems to me kind of where we are right now, and Abbott's really trying to avoid that. But he's getting real close, right, with this new border security task force, and again, sending Texas National Guard out there. They're trying to. You've got Border Patrol under federal auspices, and you've got Texas National Guard, and these two people are essentially trying to do very different things. How do they not come into conflict? That's a question I have. What happens if they come into conflict with one another?
Yeah, I don't know if we know. I mean, I know that a lot of states are. I mean, that's a Patrick question, but I haven't done a deep dive on what aspect of the Texas Constitution would apply versus the federal. And there's lawsuits going on. You know, Florida's filed lawsuits, Texas has filed lawsuits. I don't think Arizona has, right? But they're filing But okay, who's going to enforce it? Now what?
Sure.
You have judges that said, hey, you can't just let them into the country. You can't just let them in without a court date.
Sure.
And so you have a federal judge that said that. Okay, who's going to enforce that? Now what? And
exactly
what happens
right.
with the National Guard? Because I saw that video too, where they're pushing through razor. So I mean, have they talked? What are you prepared to do? I always ask that question.
Right. What
are you prepared to do? Are they going to use deadly force? I mean, that looks like an invasion to me. You have barbed wire. You're giving notice, criminal trespass. All you have to do in Texas is show a sign. Do not trespass. That's enough, and then you're guilty of criminal trespass. I mean, at least you can be accused of criminal trespass. And so you have barbed wire now. I mean, who's going to say that that's not a very open and overt sign that you're not welcomed here, or not through this way? And so what are they doing? Nothing. You're just going to be in a pushing contest? I mean, so I've always played it out in my mind. Okay, great, we have the National Guard there, but now what? What happens when they do what they do?
That's a great point. Now, where that is, you don't see people getting across because these are multi-layers of tall razor wire. Fair enough. And on the other side, you've got Texas National Guard. But the problem is that's a small portion of the border.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the pictures that we saw, the video you might have seen, was in Brownsville, Texas. That's a slice of the border. And so what we're seeing is the people that do get across, there seems to be a pretty intense effort. We've talked about this many times. People have read about it many times, of busing migrants across the country, including Kamala Harris's front yard, which seems to be working pretty well. It's irritating her. That's a good sign. But more than that, it's bringing attention to the issues. This isn't just a Texas issue. It's not an Arizona issue. This is an every state issue. I want to refer people, if I can, to the Federation for American Immigration and Reform website. It's called fair.us.org, I think. The Federation for American Immigration Reform. Check me out on that to see what the website is on that. But they have the most copious data set on illegal immigration, how it's affecting on a state-by-state basis. They look at it across various categories, but to look at the economics of it. Two things are interesting. You mentioned one, I think, last week, Nico. Right now, if we took the 6 million people on Biden's watch that are here illegally, that constitutes, basically, if you're looking in terms of state populations,
do that.
That means that the 22nd largest state in the union could technically be a legal immigration state.
Illegal immigration
state. That means you have more people here who are illegal than you have legally in 23 other states. That's insane. And the vast majority of we lost complete track of. We have no idea who they are, where they come from, or what they're doing right now. There's just no, like Nico said, this is so laxed, they're not coming back for any court dates. And then secondly, it's the economic impact. Just to give you an example, this is Virginia on the other side of Texas, right? There's a lot of states between Virginia. And it comes down to something like the state spending about $5,000 per illegal immigrant, and there's 400,000 of them. That's about $2 billion just for the state of Virginia. And they're on the other side of the world, relatively speaking, to Texas. There's a lot of states on the way there.
It would have taken $4 billion to finish the wall.
Okay. That's right.
Insane.
So this is pervasive throughout the nation. I'm just giving Virginia as one example. Go on FAIR, analyze their data, and you'll get a pretty stunning review of how illegal immigration is affecting us culturally and economically. It's out of control.
Who's this guy? Someone snuck in there.
This guy is called Saulo. Hey, we are going to continue this topic. I have a bunch of questions. Everybody has a bunch of questions, and we will get right back at it coming up next.
With reputations as respected high-level prosecutors in Bexar County, the attorneys of LaHood Norton Law Group bring invaluable...
Because it is something, I know that Governor Abbott is trying to do things, but I feel like I don't know why. I feel like he's not doing enough, and that I've actually heard from Chip Roy more than I have heard from Governor Abbott recently on why. I mean, Chip Roy is angry. He wants things done. He's stepping out in front, and I haven't seen Governor Abbott.
Yep.
And I'm really disappointed, and I know that this is something that you both have said, that it's up to the federal government, but this is a situation that has affected Texas more than a lot of other states, wouldn't you say? And so unusual circumstances, doesn't that call for unusual or atypical responses to how we're going to deal with this? But I've heard things like, well, Texas is a big state. Y'all are set up to take care of all of those people. And we're not. And the cities on the border
that's almost irrelevant. What does that mean? I mean, you're a big state. You're set up to take care of it. Well, number one, Karen, your point. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
because I mean, that kind of talk irritates me. That's a socialistic mindset. Well, you have enough. You can give it to that. So then, okay, can that be applied to Biden and all these other highfalutins and Zuckerberg and all these other people that support this ideological shift? I mean, it's not the point. The point is who's coming into this state. It's not our response into this country. It's not our responsibility. Look, these are not just Mexicans coming in. These are Haitians, Chinese. I mean, and you have to ask yourself why. What's going on? No one wants to talk about. I shouldn't say no one. These people don't want to address fentanyl. They want to talk about guns. And I know we're going to talk about whether either on the radio portion or in Facebook Live after that horrible tragedy from last Sunday in Allen, Texas. And this always is revisited whenever these things happen on gun control and what that means, and we can dissect that. But fentanyl is killing more young people and more people. And here's the thing: people don't even know they're being killed. They think they're taking another drug and it's laced. I mean, this is extremely dangerous. When I was growing up, the phrase was just say no to drugs. You don't even know how important and how critical that is today. Just say no to everything. You better know exactly what, if you're going to indulge in something like that, you better know what you're indulging in, because people are overdosing and dying. I mean, the homeless situation is horrific. You just see it everywhere. And what is the plan to bring order back to our society? Not just locally, but nationally. We don't have a plan. And so I'm at a point where I will listen and I want to work with anybody who has a plan to bring us back to status quo, to bring us back to homeostasis, so to be, so we can disagree on political issues. I feel like we don't even have a situation where there's an environment to disagree. It's almost, we're going to get to a point where we're going to be an environment to survive. And I don't mean to be hyperbolic. I'm just saying, what do you do? When does it end? Are we supposed to just, what I'm saying is play this out, as I always say. Where does this go, Karen?
Exactly.
Where does this go? How many more? Is there a number? 4 more million. We should be fine. Look, I think the argument, I just don't know how when you talk to somebody who voted for this horrific, arguably the worst president in United States history. Arguably, I think I can win that debate on objective facts, forget my emotions. You know I'm very careful with my words. And so I've not been hyperbolic, and I like to be very tempered. He's arguably the worst president in the history of this country. I mean, and the fact that even the thought of him being president for 4 more years is I don't want to use the word insane. It's discouraging. How about that for this country? For me.
I'd say it's more than discouraging.
Man, that's really, really well said, and it's appropriate. It's not conspiratorial. It's not
partisan.
It's not inflammatory.
No,
it just is what it is. This is, and I'll use the word enemy because I do. In terms of his conduct, I don't care what he privately believes. It's irrelevant. If one concludes that one's conduct is a reflection of one's belief system, then I'm going to say that this president is a true enemy of the American constitutional order, particularly the Bill of Rights. Everything he does is to diminish Americans. Everything. I don't care if it's outside, across the water in terms of foreign policy, or here in the country. Please tell me one thing this man has done that affirms the United States Constitution as written and as conveyed. Not one damn thing. This guy and his minions, and I wish I could use stronger language because it's the only language that fits this guy. And it's not him. It's everybody else behind him. This man does not have control of his faculties. Everybody knows that. He struggles to find out where he is that day. He doesn't even know the room he's in. Okay? I'm surprised he knows his own name. So this isn't about Biden per se. It's about the political machine that's using Biden to sort of undo America from its roots. But this is truly a person that is working against the country and working against its citizens. Nico asked, is there a plan? I have to say, I can't believe I'm saying this. The person who has put together a plan that actually would have worked if she would have lived long enough to get it passed into law is one of my person I respect very much legislatively, and I think who died an early death, and that was the former great Texas Democrat, Barbara Jordan. I mean, as you say, a woman who happened to be black. She didn't only break a bunch of glass ceilings in terms of the gender politics of the day, but she was also quite smart. And here's the difference between her and a Biden. She genuinely loved the United States of America, recognized its faults, but lauded it for its strengths, and recognized that, with all of its faults, she was in a position that she was because the ideals of the country as pushed and advanced by Martin Luther King were the reasons why she was in the position she was. But she was putting together very effective immigration reform and had a bill. And she died just shortly before it was taken up and became law. And I was hoping, Nico, if I could, that I could just quote her a little bit. Here's what she said in 1995. And I knew you bring up 1995 because Clinton himself. Now, why do you think Clinton was so motivated? Because he had a lot of push and influence from Barbara Jordan. Here's what she said. We have concluded that a properly regulated legal immigration system is in the national interest. Immigration is not a right guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution to anyone in the world who thinks they want to come to the United States. Immigration is a privilege granted by the people of the United States to those to whom we choose to admit. We are a country of laws. We disagree with those who would label any effort to control illegal immigration as somehow inherently anti-immigrant. Unlawful immigration is not acceptable. My commission, her commission, the Jordan Commission, finds no national interest in continuing to import lesser skilled and unskilled workers in the most vulnerable parts of our labor force. Many American workers do not have job prospects, and they're not improving. With welfare reform, many unskilled American workers were in the labor market. We should make their task easier to find employment, not harder, by prioritizing unskilled foreign labor.
I'm so glad, man, George. I didn't know you were going to bring her up. I'm so glad you brought her up. This is so relevant.
Didn't either,
because,
but you were.
Well, no, but think about this. Think about why that happened in 1995. He brings up Barbara Jordan, and then I always bring up Bill Clinton in 1995 during the State of the Union address. I mean, Democrats were champions against illegal immigration. Why? Think about what the Democrat used to support. The Democrat Party, the blue collar worker. So illegal immigration affects blue collar workers, right? First,
of course.
And so that's why President Clinton at the time, Barbara Jordan then, were championing against this, and this was one of their platform issues, and they were right. See, this is why I always encourage people to have a discussion, a battle of ideas. Forget about labeling that idea, Democrat, Republican. So what is illegal immigration? Is that a Democrat idea? They were championing it in 1995. We know Barbara Jordan, example that George brought up, Bill Clinton that we talk about all the time. But now it's a Republican idea. It's just an idea. And that's why everyone should get on board. But here's the question I have, we were talking about earlier. The vast majority of Democrats don't want Biden to run again. So why is he running? You think he's making up that decision himself? It's not. And you have to ask yourself, who's making this decision? What's their ultimate goal? And we've talked about it, and George brings it up all the time. It's power. And you have to ask yourself, well, why do they want a person that is hugely unpopular to run again? Unless, is there a way that they're going to win no matter what? I don't know. I'm asking the question because it doesn't make sense to me logically. And so what I would love to see, I would love Democrats to come together and say, look, we're going to take our party back. I want to go back to the party of Barbara Jordan or Bill Clinton the first time, not the guy today. I mean, Bobby Kennedy is running right now. Here's a guy that you could. I know Bobby, and I promise you, he loves this country. He's of the Barbara Jordan mindset, which you just read.
Yes.
I guarantee you, Bobby Kennedy believes the same. Robert Kennedy, but I know Bobby, and in his announcement party, American flags everywhere. He wants to go back to the ideals. He's more of a classical liberal. He's not a progressive left nut. And so the Democrat Party, to get back to a true two-party system that keeps each other accountable, needs to go back to that mindset where you had a blue dog, a yellow dog Democrat, some people a little more liberal than others, but yet there was a foundation that everybody agreed on. This right here is a battle for survival and dominance. This is not a battle of balance. We used to have two parties that balanced each other out. Now this is a battle of dominance. And that's what this country cannot sustain that long term. Yeah. That's just a fact. That's not a doom and gloom statement.
Yeah, and we're not talking 35,000 feet. We're talking granularity here. The claims or the policies that they were trying to enforce. These are Democrats in 1995, and that Bobby Kennedy would definitely agree. I mean, this is the stuff that comes right out of the commission here. It's a huge document, but just a couple snippets. Cutting legal immigration levels in half to about 500,000 admissions a year. Ending the process known as chain migration, where naturalized citizens can sponsor an unlimited number of foreign relatives. Ending the diversity visa lottery that randomly gives out 55,000 visas a year. Mandating E-Verified nationwide to screen out illegal aliens from the hiring process. Ending low-skilled immigration and massively curbing illegal immigration with increased border enforcement. Here's the best part, from a Democrat, and swift deportation. Are we even talking about the same party? And the answer is no.
Let that sink in.
We're not talking about the same party.
Glad. Was that in her bill?
Yes. Oh, that's right out of the commission.
And this is exactly what many Democrats supported back then. Someone needs to come up and put this right in their faces today and say, what happened? Was she wrong? Are you going to openly say that she was wrong? Bill Clinton, where are you at? Hillary, why did Bill make the statements he made? No one's pushing back, in my humble opinion, and forcing people to come back to this mindset. Democrats were pushing a set of ideas. Where are they today? Not one Democrat voted for that bill. Oh gosh, George, maybe you can remember what it was. I'm going to screw it up. Maybe somebody can say it in. But no, not one Democrat today voted to enforce the border.
You're talking about HR 2?
Yes. Yes. Thank you. I mean, to support that. And we cannot we've gotten into a tribalistic, the only person that has broken ranks, so to speak, on certain issues is Joe Manchin. Everybody else falls right in line. Now, I think Henry Cuellar has a very different opinion on immigration because they have to deal with it down there. And we need more of that. We need people that aren't afraid to disagree with the go along to get along mentality, because the ideas of the Democrat Party nationally and what they're trying to do are not benefiting this country. We have a stark difference now. Whether you like Trump or not, it doesn't. I mean, I'm really far past that. You got to think to yourself, okay, 4 years under Trump. What was it? Was it chaotic at times? Yes. Why was it chaotic? Some of it he brought upon himself, no doubt about it. But others was just an onslaught on this dude. Look, I was talking to someone that can't stand Trump. I mean, this person cannot stand Trump. And they said this. I did not suggest this because I was just listening. I wanted to know. They said, this guy has to be the cleanest dude around. He's been the most investigated guy that I've ever heard of. And they can't nail him. I mean, they were talking about in the sense of nailing him. Like, you're dead to rights on the wall. You know, there's no defense to this one. He's like, I can't stand him, but and I don't want him to be. They even said, I don't even want to be president. And I was like, okay, well, that was a different discussion. But this guy is clean. I mean, this guy's it's been unfair the way he's been treated. And then I kind of dissected it. It was a fascinating discussion after that. But you have a stark difference now. You have a comparison. 4 years under Trump, and I can't even imagine but all these years under Biden. And then look at the state of our country. And you can't just say, well, it's Trump's fault. That's BS. You got to. I want evidence.
And yet, Nico, since we're equal opportunity offenders, we just got to be really fair about this. Everybody goes back to 1965 as having restarted mass migration with the Ted Kennedy bill. Okay. Everybody goes back to, it's the Democrats. Oh, yeah, the Democrats are just doing insult to injury. But I want to point out that this actually became unmanageable under Republicans. Yeah. And I'd like to just chat about that for 30 seconds, if I may, on the other side of the break.
Okay, well...
And then get your thoughts on it.
Absolutely.
We don't mind offending Republicans. Okay.
We will continue just after the news, coming up next.
This is News Radio 1200 WOAI, San Antonio, and iHeartRadio.
Sidebar.com. That's where you can become a sponsor. You can also find all of the different links to Facebook Live. We are doing Facebook Live during the show and after the show. It's Sidebar. Wrong mic.
No, am I out?
No microphone. So sorry. Hold on. Try again.
Testing 1, 2, no?
No.
Testing
There you go. There you go.
No, we got a sponsor already. So we want to thank somebody that's sponsoring, that loves that we're having these conversations and knows that we need to have these conversations more and more. So we want to thank this person that already is participating as a sponsor.
Perfect.
So we want to encourage other people to help us, because every time we post a reel, Dom says this phrase: "Man, when do you think we're going to get canceled?" Dom always tells me every time I post a reel.
It's real.
Why? Because these reels are
Dom,
real,
why would you
man.
say that?
No.
What makes you think we're going to get canceled?
Yeah, he's waiting for it.
Because y'all make too much sense.
So now we're on TikTok and now we're on Twitter. so we can get this message out even more so. But even the more they know about Sidebar, the more eyes are good and bad
Are you
eyes are going to
posting the old reels on TikTok and
We're posting them.
Twitter, the old ones?
Yeah, we're going to start doing that. But we want to encourage people, like, if you think that these conversations are important, they need to be had, please follow us on all our platforms. If you're not on Sidebar, get on Sidebar. On Rumble, get on Rumble. Follow us. Share us as much as you can. And understand this. The world is changing, and these conversations are needed. And we would love for you to say, you know what? I want you guys to continue and become sponsors of Sidebar.
You know, I have to give honor to where honor's due. You know, without Salo and Dom, I mean, they put, I mean, you know, George and I just do George and I and you, Karen. So we're just talking away, acting like fools sometimes, just kind of just talking just openly and hopefully making some sense. And we get passionate. I understand that. But Salo puts these reels together that are engaging. I've had many people, Salo, I just want to give you some credit here because you deserve it. And Dom is helping you out tremendously. But they love your reels. I mean, you're very creative. You have a talent. And so, yeah, thank you for doing what you're doing.
And let me say something. In comparison, when people analyze social media platforms and comparison to followers and likes and stuff like that, the comparison of our number of followers to the number of views our reels are getting, George asked me, so how does that happen? I'm like, I don't know. People love you guys, and people enjoy the conversations you're having. And because they enjoy the conversation, I share what I enjoy. You know, there's a good place to brag about the stuff we like. So people are sharing our reels, even though we don't have that many followers. So it's a kind of weird, bad, good thing we're doing here.
Well, look, I mean, it's not about George and I. It's not about you, Karen. It's just about expressing our thoughts and hopefully making sense logically and really encouraging people, as I've always said from day one when you and I started, Karen, before we drugged George on kicking and screaming, is just teaching people or showing people how to critically think.
Yeah.
I mean, spar with ideas in your mind, and then understanding that whatever ideas you're advocating have consequences. Some are good consequences, some are bad consequences. Ideas have consequences. Now, the problem with our society today is that we label an idea. That's why I like to bring up, I'm glad you brought up Barbara Jordan. I always bring up Bill Clinton in 95 and what Democrats were advocating not even that long ago. Versus today, when we label the idea, because we have become so tribalistic that, like the friend that I was talking to, I can't stand Donald Trump, but man, he's been treated unfairly, and I'm still not going to vote for him. But wait a minute, but it actually was talked about some of the policies that they liked about him. But for some reason, there was something in the mind, and I'm really far past all that, and I used to be that person too. If someone pissed me off, I mean, but I think, okay, ideas are affecting us every day, are affecting our children. What are we leaving back to our kids? When you think about the society and the environment we're leaving our kids in, and if you really took any time to study our schools, and you took time the ideas and what our children are being truly exposed to, the cases that I'm seeing today, I've been practicing law for 20 years. The cases I'm seeing today are very different than the cases I saw 20 years ago and 15 years ago. They just are, and they're involving younger people. And even the adult cases that we're seeing are very different too. And then to talk about, we'll eventually talk about what happened in Allen, Texas, and all these mass shootings and this violence that we're seeing. But there's a lot of there's violent thoughts. When you hate somebody because you disagree with them, even if you don't act on it, that's why we always talk about Christ in Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5. He said, you have heard that it's a sin to murder someone. He took it deeper. I tell you that it's a sin to think murderously. Oh, crap. Well, there you go. So because Christ and our biblical worldview cares about your mind and renewing the mind. Romans 12:2, right? To have this renewed mind. Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Well, the mind is a terrible thing to waste. We used to say that, right? United Negro College. Now the mind is just a terrible thing. You can't even think. and we have to teach people to think. As Albert Einstein said, true education is not the memorization of facts, but it's teaching the mind how to think. And we're not teaching kids how to think today. And adults aren't thinking, or if they do, they're not sharing their thoughts. And so we need to do. So thank you, Salo and Dom, for what you do.
Melissa from Fort Worth. Melissa, thank you for logging on. We got Carl's logging on. Annette Zamora, good morning. If you're watching, you're listening. If you're listening on the radio, thank you. If you're watching and listening on social media, please heart it up, and share it as much as you can. Thank you.
And you have to agree with Salo. This is important because didn't we just see what happened to Tucker Carlson, the only guy that we thought was going to be the one that stood for the truth, and now he's gone.
Yeah.
And so
well, no, he's not gone. He's
temporarily gone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's the calm. It's the calm before the storm. Here,
I think so too.
With regard to Tucker, I'm sure.
Nico, as a lawyer, can there be? Because I don't know if you just noticed, and people that don't know, Facebook lost class action lawsuit. if you were on Facebook, I don't know what year, you can get some money from Facebook right now. I don't know if you know, but if you were on, I don't know what year, like I'm submitting my request and I'm going to get some money back because a group of people made a class action lawsuit against Facebook. Can somebody do that against the media? Because I understand, like, they're causing misinformation, everybody. They're causing people to hate each other. They're, what's when they talk about your image or your personality? Defaming or defamation.
Defamation?
Yeah, can anybody do that against the media?
I mean, what you can do and what's going to materialize in the end is different. I'm going to have to talk to our civil lawyer. We have a civil lawyer that we work with in our firm also and does all of our federal and state civil stuff. But so I have to talk with him about that. I mean, the First Amendment is pretty strong, and you have to think about those effects and ramifications of that. So the answer is I don't know, but I'll look into that.
But somebody should ask Dominion's lawyers. They seem to be pretty effective lately.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
So Karen,
But if anybody would be able to do that, it would be Trump, because he has had lies told about him. He's had accusations, and does anybody know if the lady that accused him of rape? I mean, she's kind of a loony,
Carol,
no matter
the lady,
what.
That's an interesting case. You talk about that, and I don't know if that was on the topic or not, but that's an interesting case. So he was found liable for defamation because he called her a liar.
And sexual abuse, but not.
Well, but they have to prove. Remember,
rape.
the defense for defamation and is the truth. So libel and slander. Libel is writing it. Slander is saying it. Defaming somebody. So if you said, well, you're defaming me. Well, what I said was the truth. Oh crap. Okay. Well, then there you go. Then that's your defense. So she had to prove. The jury had to think that he actually did it. And then so when he called her a liar, he was defaming her because she's not a liar. She said the truth. And I understand. I didn't follow the case. I didn't even whatever. But the evidence that came in was interesting. Or the judge didn't allow in was interesting. But that's a civil standard. So you're talking about preponderance of evidence versus beyond a reasonable doubt. But
the fact that it got as far as it did.
Yeah, right.
Well, that doesn't shock me anymore, to be honest with you.
The language was sexual battery and defamation that he was found guilty of, but not rape. And look, it's had virtually zero effect on him, and he's floating right over it. That's what it seemed. And people just simply don't try. I mean, it's a Manhattan jury. I mean, so people, I think, are connecting the dots. I mean, he's been prosecuted by Alvin Bragg. Not that Alvin is being dissuaded by his biases in any way, right? So people just simply don't trust. This, I think, is really, it's great for Trump, but I don't think it's great for America in the sense that people don't even trust. They don't trust the jury system anymore.
I actually heard a very conservative professional. I don't want to give away who it is because nobody knows, but I mean, it's a professional in the medical community who is a staunch conservative for years. I mean, they're older in years, but that can't stand Trump. And I get it, but I mean, doesn't want to vote for them too. And I'm just curious, what's the alternative? I mean, DeSantis, I mean, Nikki Haley. I mean, whether I like Trump personally or not, like I said, it's irrelevant to me now. It's irrelevant. I'd probably tell him off at some point if he gave me some of his attitude that he has. But
we need a life raft right now.
I mean, but the point is what's going to save this country? Because it's not Biden. I mean, inflation. What do you brag about this administration? I'm just saying, like, what is nobody's bragging about Biden. Any Biden supporter is ragging on Trump. They're not bragging about Biden. They're not. What are you touting he's done well? What legislation of significance that's actually blessed this country? What do you? I mean, the Transnational Day. I mean, what are we doing that he's done that has blessed this country or brought people together? Remember, I thought he was going to be the unifier because now there's an adult in the White House. I just don't know. I don't know what you brag about. So, I really wish people would come together. I wish people would actually take back the Democrat Party. I wish the Bobby Kennedys of the world and the Barbara Jordans of the world, those, if they're still in the Democrat Party today, would let their voices be heard and take back the Democrat Party so we can truly have a balance back and people can hold each other accountable. Because like George said earlier, I mean, man, we will call balls and strikes, man. We criticize, hopefully constructively, Republicans when they do things whacked out. We criticize Trump all the time on here. I mean, with the vaccines and all the other stuff that is insanity and how he's trips
name
over
calling.
himself, name call, and all the stuff that he doesn't have to do. He hands over crap to people that he doesn't need to. But aside from all that, in the end, net, what are we going to do to get our country back? Well, number one, what does getting our country back mean? Build back better. Okay, how have you, here's my question to any Biden supporter. How has he built this country back better? What's better about this country now? Tell me what's better about it. The unity? What is better about the immigration, our standing in the world? China's setting themselves up to be the peacemaker between Russia and Ukraine. Where's Biden? Biden can't even get phone calls back from the Middle East about oil because they laugh at him. I mean, we have no standing in the world. Everybody thinks he's a joke because he is. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm just saying it's a joke. No one takes him seriously. And where's our Vice President Harris? I mean, I thought she was the border czar. What is she doing at the border? But yet
she's letting it happen.
She wants to go down to the root cause. Okay, well, I don't know what that means. I'm just tired of the sound bites. We need to get out of sound bites. We need to get deeper, and we need to get to truly root causes of issues, which we'll talk about that when it comes to gun violence, quote unquote. And bring solutions. But I want to know what the definition of getting our country back is.
Well, sometimes it feels like this little quote, "We need to get out and vote," isn't even enough these days. And I want to discuss that coming up next after this.
With reputations as respected high-level prosecutors in Bexar County, the attorneys of LaHood.
SidebarTV.com, just like Salo said, you got to go there to get onto our social media platform.
And something that helps us all the time, when you hear George or Nico say something, please, if you have an opinion, good or bad, like it or not, favor or against, please comment in the thread. Give us your opinion, because I love what Nico says all the time. Like people, whenever I talk to people, I always tell them, can we talk information more than emotions? Because once you start getting your emotions, you got to admit, sometimes your emotions will mess up your information or your ability to address it. So I love when I talk to people, I love to tell them from the front end, wow, you think completely different than I do. And I like it. We don't agree, and I like it. And that is okay. But nowadays, people can't have that. So if you don't agree with Nico and or George, do tell us. Let us know. And also helps the algorithm too.
Another thing that you mentioned, Nico, is that this is no longer a Democrat-Republican thing. It's just...
I don't think it is.
No.
I don't think it is. I think it's an idea thing. I think we need to have a discussion about ideas and quit trying to label those ideas. We just need to talk things through. Because I know a lot of quote-unquote Democrats that really, when you listen to them, I mean, they're that Barbara Jordan Democrat, maybe Bobby Kennedy, maybe the old Bill Clinton, some of these old school Blue Dog Democrats. And I was like, well, what does that mean today? How does that transfer over today to today's platform issues? Because you're voting to support the platform that doesn't agree with your ideas that you're talking to me about today. And I just think we need to have a discussion about ideas, because once you label them and we get so tribalistic, people shut the other side off. And I, like to Salo's point, I love having conversation, and I will defend someone's right to have it. That's a classical liberal, by the way, right? That mindset that you should have. I want to defend people's right to disagree properly. Don't be disrespect. In my opinion, try not to be disrespectful. But even if you are, I mean, you have a right to be an idiot, I guess. But as long as you don't hurt anybody physically.
Go ahead, George. You're laughing.
Well, yeah, I appreciate the invitation for people to give their thoughts, their opinions, their pushback, because that's really what we're about here. And we're going to tell you, you can forcefully disagree with us, but we have the right to forcefully disagree back. Just want you to know. Let's have that kind of dialogue back and forth and be respectful. I want to, speaking of that, Scott Ogle just made a comment about how 99% of rape abuse charges in churches or claims in churches aren't even investigated, and how Trump basically instructed the IRS to kind of gloss over or ignore these kinds of problems inside churches. And I just, what's the basis for that, Scott? Where are you getting that? I mean,
When people start talking about 99% of this, that's a hyperbolic statement. I don't know what he's saying.
Where's it coming from? I mean, are you aware? Are you following what's been going on here under certainly under the Obama Biden regimes? Have you been following how they've been going after Protestant churches, not just Catholic churches, but Catholic churches primarily? When you start talking about Catholic churches, cases about pedophilia and rape charges, unfortunately, many of them have found to be legitimate issues. But you said churches. Who are you talking about? Are you talking about Protestant churches? Do you have any idea the level of investigatory effort going on right now in this administration and Protestant churches? That's pervasive right now. The Southern Baptist Convention announced months ago that it's being investigated by the Biden administration. That's 14 million members, 47,000 churches. And those investigations are largely baseless. The idea that there's all kinds of rapes happening inside of the Southern Baptist network of churches and that they're not being investigated, there's a pretty robust internal investigatory process inside the Southern Baptist Convention for any kind of impropriety. This has been going on for decades. They've released independent reports. It's been transparent. But churches have a right. They have a hierarchy. They have a right to investigate these things. No, we don't want the long arm of the government to coming in and every time there's a charge, it needs to be verified first inside the church. They produced an investigatory report, but a lot of this stuff is baseless. So where are you getting this stuff? Anyway, we'll follow up on that later. All I'm saying is let's do our homework. Send us sources. Let us look at it and respond. But man, I'm just tired of the inflammatory crap.
Well, we got to be able to share information. I mean, and people that and do it in a way that's productive. But then also, here's the deal: if you don't go into a conversation with the mindset that you could learn something, then that's not going to be a productive conversation. And to have a productive conversation, listen to this part: you have to take the chance. You have to take the risk of offending the person you're talking to. I'm not saying that you're intending to offend them. There's a difference. There's people that get into conversations that their intent is to offend the other person. That's ridiculous. That's just, you're trying to sow strife. You're not trying to reconcile around truth. I'm just saying to have a meaningful conversation. If Karen, if you and I are going to have a meaningful conversation, and I know it's about an important topic in your life or that's going to affect your life, then I have to take the chance of unfortunately offending you if it's going to be meaningful, or else I'm just going to tell you what you want to hear, and we're going to dance around the real issues. Now, Ephesians 4:15 says to speak the truth in love. So I got to check my heart to make sure that I'm doing it to give you truth, to challenge your presuppositions and your mindset, to go back and forth to let you challenge mine, and then hopefully for both of us to agree around the truth. I'm a truth scavenger. That's the way I describe myself. I'm a truth seeker. I want truth, and I will conform to the truth, whatever it is, objective, whether it's in any topic, and then I will champion the truth once I'm persuaded by it. So I'm an open-minded skeptic. I'm not a cynic. There's a difference, and I've discussed that with you before. A skeptic is like doubting Thomas. I'm not going to believe until I see the holes in his wrist and the side in his side. And then when Thomas saw the resurrected Christ, well, then he went and he got martyred for it, and he started one of the early churches. So a skeptic is someone that has sincere, genuine questions, pushes back, but once the skeptic sees the truth, they conform to the truth, and then they go out and champion the truth. A cynic is someone that no matter what you tell them, they're going to come up with an excuse. I always bring up the Lyndon B. Johnson example when he was vice president. He said this about the media. He said, I could wake up one morning and walk on top of the Potomac River